Hey guys, we have a third speaker for the day, Sushin. Uh, as I've said earlier, Sushant is an author, and he's not like anybody who calls himself an author but doesn't put the work and effort into it. Sushant actually pulled off a 250 pages novel. Sushant, what exactly made you write a book, and when did you decide that you'll go ahead and write a book?
Okay, so thing is, I've always been an avid MUN delegate. In fact, I even got a chance to direct a committee, and I've always been predisposed to history. And like even we participated together in Indian cabinet in campus. I remember. So it's just the amount of research you can actually get by participating in such conferences. And I did that throughout my schooling, and that is how I actually built research work. And the reason why I wrote is because I have a younger brother. Okay, he's really good at painting. He paints a lot,
Right.
but he doesn't know jack about history. And it's like we were having a discussion recently about possibilities of Kashmir being a sovereign state, and I was explaining what it meant to be a sovereign state. And he told me, like, we are all providing our own input to the discussion. What does sovereign mean? And my brother was telling me that sovereign is a map in Call of Duty that he enjoys playing. And that's nice. I mean, that's, am I audible?
Right.
Yeah, that's nice. But that's
Yeah,
not the
you
point. I wanted to share similar interests with my brother. So 2 months prior to my college
right.
opening, I decided to write a short narrative for my brother, and that narrative was John Oliver. That's my debut novel today, but I never
Right.
expected it to actually turn out to be a novel. So when I started writing it, I always enjoyed writing and reading history, alternate history. So a perfect example of alternate history could be, I don't know, Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So
Right.
I enjoyed writing alternate history and I started writing it, but I abandoned it once college began because you know how college can be. It is, I had a lot of things going on in campus. I couldn't really write it. So I abandoned it. When my roommate was playing PUBG once in a while, I used to type my story and really, I couldn't really employ undeterred attention. But when the college announced lockdown, I had to go back to Chennai. I found my research work and everything, safe in a folder in my computer. So I started typing the story and I didn't stop typing. I just typed because I already had the research in my mind. I typed and 10,000 words, you have a short story, 20,000 words, you have a novella, and 40,000 words, you have a novel. And I reached halfway through the plot and I had 48,000 words already. So that's when I knew I was writing a novel. I think that's how I ended up writing a novel. It took 6 months to write the novel, but it took almost a year or more than a year to do the research. So researching for a book is the hard part. Once you cross the hard part, I think it's pretty much, it's very simple.
Right. Uh, See, the thing about research is everybody needs to do research at some point in their life, right? As I've said, be it your project work or be it your startup, there is a considerable amount of research that goes into it. Now, in your domain of writing a book, when did you actually get to the realization that okay, I have enough information now, it's time to get writing?
Okay, so that's actually a good question. The thing is, that's it's a very thin line, separating too much information and adequate information. For example, there's a scene in my book John Oliver where a couple go to watch a movie in a theater in 1931. Now,
Right.
what were they munching on 1931? What were they eating? They weren't really eating popcorns in 1931 because popcorn was popularized as a food consumed in cinemas only after World War II. So it was associated with the depression. But 1931, no, they didn't have uh, popcorns. They didn't consume it in theaters. So I had to get into research. I had to research what they consumed in theaters, and well, the answer was they consumed Hershey's Kisses in London back in 1928 and before. So
Right.
that's you just have to. That's the thing. Beauty lies in the details. You need to make sure you're providing the details subtly. But sometimes this happened even to me. Trust me, the unabridged version of my manuscript was full of excruciating amount of detail, and I had to tone it down. Initially, my manuscript was more than 550 pages long. I brought it down because sometimes every novel, every story has a flow.
Right.
It's like pebbles in a brook, pebbles in a brook. You don't want to make any, you don't want to create any kinks or disturbances. So what
Right.
happens is when you read a novel and when you notice a lot of details, yeah, the flow just comes to a temporary pause. It halts and then you resume. So you don't want that, and I think that is when you know you're going too much on the details. So when the characteristics of a setting or any detail begins to shadow the protagonist or the main plot, that's when you need to stop. It's very hard to notice it. You won't notice it unless somebody else points it out to you. Mostly that's how it happens, but you just have to make sure you don't make any kinks in the flow.
Right. Uh, that's a very interesting thing that you talked about, kinks in the flow and how it should not overshadow the protagonist. Now, putting it into the context of our day-to-day lives, let's take the context of our personal lives. Your research work can be or the information that you've gathered can have an analogy of the information that is being bombarded onto us by our mobile phones. Now, when there's an information overload on our cognitive mind, there are a lot of pebbles and kinks that start occurring in our real life. From your mobile, problems actually start seeping into your real life. This is growing alarmingly fast because of people being hooked onto social media. Uh, Now, putting the IG spin on whatever you've said, what do you think would happen to people in the next couple of years, because of all the information overload and the kinks that are coming up?
Okay, I'll tell you what has happened right now. Okay, we have used all of our resources, all of our intelligence to construct a gilded cage, okay, maybe a prison. We have stepped into the prison, we have locked ourselves in it, and we have thrown the key outside. We cannot come out of the prison we have constructed ourselves, because right now we live in a world where we depend on social media platforms. Even now, it's just it's beyond repair right now. And about information bombardment, I think the thing is, when social media platforms were created, they were meant to get you addicted to it. So that's the whole point of providing you with relevant feeds. And it's good. It's good to have additional information. It's very helpful. But what went wrong is that there's always a quality that's needed. You need to have the information that's provided to you through social media platforms need to satisfy a lot of they need to have a few attributes. All right, the relevance. How relevant is the information to you? Is the information complete? Because right now we live in a world where the headlines matter, and headlines can be very deceiving. So you need to really read between the lines. It's very difficult. So the completeness of the information matters. And second, is it real? Because I can write a conspiracy theory proving the existence of Bigfoot. It's not going to matter. So I think that's what you're talking about.
Right.
I guess bombardment of a lot of information. We don't even know authenticity.
True.
There are a lot of attributes that have to be satisfied with the information that we get. So
Yeah.
yes, it's very dangerous right now, and we are honestly dependent on it.
Uh, this reminds me of a very popular quote. I think it was in a previous conversation with you. You talked about how Stephen Hawking had one fear, and one of those fear was AI taking over humans. And the funny part is when people actually hear about AI taking over humans, right? They see these big humanoid robots with a whip and commanding humans what to do. But when in reality, the AI algorithms that make Facebook so addicting and even your Instagram so intriguing for you are the algorithms that they have become. And those are the demons that we're dealing with. What do you think about it? Do you think that AI has already taken over human life?
See, that's the thing. Let's talk about it in two different ways, okay?
Yeah.
So the reason why we are addicted to electronics or platforms, okay? This is just my opinion. There are two kinds of dependency. You have cognitive dependency and behavioral dependency,
Right.
and the need to check our phones, make sure we don't have any read messages, we haven't replied to any messages. The need to just take our phones and check often, it falls under the category of behavioral dependency. It's not really a cognitive one. And in fact, behavioral dependency is way more powerful than cognitive dependency, because we actually have control over it, but we can't really get rid of it.
Right.
So that's the thing. And yeah, that's the thing.
Coming back to behavioral dependency, one interesting thing that I did find out, right, when I was looking into how these algorithms make it more addictive. Uh, so I came across this. There's this very popular documentary on Netflix. I'm pretty sure everybody must have seen it. So they actually talk about how the algorithms measure how long you stare at a post, how quickly you like to post, and all of this information that is yours. You're becoming a landmine of information for these firms, and that is how they ensure that their platform is so interesting for you at all times. Now, given the power of AI and the amount of information that it can mine for somebody, Sushant, as an author, do you see a point in the near future where if an author has to write a book for a specific target audience, there'll be an algorithm that says the author, hey, these are the points that you should cover if you want to make a book that's an international bestseller? Do you think that some sort of technology of that level is possible?
See, actually, first of all, I forgot to answer your previous question about Stephen Hawking's prediction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally forgot to answer that. Let's get back to that and we'll get back to this question. Yes, I
All right.
think well, it's not a prediction. We are moving into Industry 4.0, and the whole purpose of Industry 4.0 is to automate everything, digitalize everything, reduce human labor, manual labor,
Right.
and that is actually increasing our dependency over machines. If you want to buy something, you go to a store, you're going to use Paytm,
Right.
cashless economy, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's we are already succumbing to all these things. It's not a it's gradually, in a very subtle manner, it's already happening to us. It's not, you're not going to have any robot like the Terminator is going to really cause havoc. And no, that's not what's going to happen. It's already happening to us. We're already dependent on electronics. And in fact, right now, when I spoke to all my seniors about what to do after engineering, they all of them recommended me to get into Industry 4.0 because it has a lot of scope. And that's my point exactly. It has a lot of scope. So we are getting more and more dependent on electronics. Yeah, and your question about algorithms for writing bestsellers, you know, there are there are already there are already algorithms. That's the thing. When I started writing, in fact, my book is called John Oliver. All right,
Okay.
and I don't know if you know this, but there's a very popular TV show host. His name is John Oliver, and he wins. Like he won an Emmy, I think,
Yeah.
last year. He won really okay. So he's super
Yeah.
popular, and I named my book John Oliver without the H, just Jon Oliver. And it's so difficult because when you search John Oliver, you won't get the right search result. It's very annoying. And there are algorithms. If you visit self-publishing websites, they will tell you what kind of
Right.
books people read. Last year, during the pandemic, non-fiction genre, it skyrocketed. Everybody wanted to read non-fiction because they found that time of the year, that time of their life, to gain as much knowledge as possible. The furlough scheme, people are losing their jobs. They're trying to gain as much knowledge to get a better job. I mean, everyone's job was at risk, so people read a lot of non-fiction books. Before
Yeah.
that, okay, there was a huge wave that hit India, mythological fiction, with the Shiva trilogy. Yeah, so there are software, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, by
Anish.
Anish,
Yeah.
exactly. Everyone has read it, okay. So thing is, there are algorithms that calculate what genre you need to write to hit the bestsellers list. There are genres based on the sale, based on everything. It's not just Amazon, but everything. Traditional publishing, self-publishing, all the portals, they make a comprehensive research, and they tell you, if you write a book in this genre with so and so topics, you're going to hit the bestsellers. And sometimes you do. They do, actually. It works.
It's actually pretty interesting. Another point that I picked up in what you've said is, how the current genre that a specific area is reading can dictate its economic standing. That's a pretty interesting principle that I would like to look into at a later point. That seems pretty solid. The proof that you've provided, like given a recession, people are losing jobs, so they read nonfiction to gain jobs and upskill themselves. That's pretty interesting. That's something definitely worth pondering. Uh, any questions for Sushant, guys, from the audience? Uh, any and all are welcome. Right. I guess that's it. Okay. That is it. How much do you
Okay,
spend?
there's one question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. How much time do you spend on average daily? Fine. That's the thing, writing it. People say I write for fun, and that should be the spirit. You should write for fun. But the thing is, when you're too casual about writing is something you can easily postpone. Even I postpone so many times. Fine, I always have a habit of writing every night, something or the other, just my thoughts. Document your thoughts. Mine is so chaotic. I write, but I always tell myself when I'm too lazy, I tell, okay, fine, I'll write it tomorrow. I'll write it day after tomorrow. So thing, what I've learned so far, I'm still a very novice writer. I'm still new to this. But after writing one book, what I realized is that writing is more than just writing for fun. It involves a discipline, and it's very difficult to write as an engineering student. Let me be honest with you. I don't think I would have been able to author my novel in 6 months' time if it weren't for the lockdown period. I could actually write my book day and night because of the lockdown. I could focus. And that's one of the main reasons why my book was delayed, or else I'd have published it last December itself. So what I do is during there's not particular hours. What we do is we focus on words. We focus on word limit. Okay, fine. I'm going to write this many words every day. Okay, I'll write 2,000 words every day, 5,000 words every day. So I don't think it's the hours that we time that we count. It's more of the number of words we write. That's how it works. Secondly, how do we find courage to start? Um, how do we find courage to start? There'll always be some element or the other that will kindle your interest to write. Like I told you my reason. It's just that we keep thinking all the time about different things, and people have their own ways of expressing their thoughts. Music is a very efficient way. I play the guitar myself, but I think words, it's beautiful. The amount of meanings, the amount of emotions you can confine in one word, it's impeccable. Trust me. And ever since I started writing, I always go back to my old entries 2012, 2013, when I was back in school. When I read it, I can actually, it's nostalgia. It's very nostalgic when you read entries, and it's very powerful too. It's a very powerful tool to store memories. And I often tell people around me, authors can paint better paintings than painters themselves. It's beautiful, the amount of beautiful things you can do with just words. Second, how to keep going, what motivates you to hang on to that grind? Okay, yeah, that's the thing. Right now, I've started working on my second book too, and the second book is a historical thriller, not in 1931, but in Macedonia, 323rd century BC. And what keeps me going is it's just my interest to retrace history and provide an alternate perspective. It's just a passion. I can't, again, it's also passion as well as discipline. So when you give yourself a deadline, okay, I'm going to write this many words today. You just do it. You just find time when you like something, and oh, it's Tanzila. Okay. Mal. Oh, fine. If you have such
Mal-
choices, professional balance, what would you have such choices available as a professional? So if you have
I
such
think that
choices
goes
available,
back to our algorithms to say what the audience want. Algorithm says you got to do this, and then deep down you want to do this particular tangent. How do you strike the balance between what your heart wants and what the algorithm says?
oh yeah, that's actually a good question. Uh, Again, there are some people. See, again, now I'm going to become an engineer. I think being an engineer is awesome. I guess I don't know what is it to be an engineer, but I'm gonna definitely become an engineer someday, and I'm gonna pursue my hobby. And the reason why I write is because it just gives me happiness. I'm not gonna do it as a profession, so I'm never gonna make writing a profession. So I don't really have to focus on satisfying my audience. I'll definitely build my own audience, and they will know what to expect from my upcoming books. But as long as it's your hobby, I think it's all about writing what you like. I know a lot of people, I know a lot of poets, I know a lot of authors who actually follow the algorithms, they follow the strategies that their publication provides, and they write accordingly, and they're even given royalties accordingly. But if you're pursuing writing as a hobby, I don't think you should focus on your the algorithms and stuff. I think you should just write what you feel like. That's my opinion. Unless you're doing it as a profession, then yes, algorithms would matter because that's gonna earn your bread and butter. So otherwise, I think you should just
I
write.
think that whole algorithm thing ties back into these content writers. These content writers who optimize blogs and all of that for websites so that the SEO ranking gets higher. So yeah, that's also a pretty interesting profession, guys. I've seen quite a lot of my friends give a shot at content writing. If you're somebody who wants to start off writing, I think content writing is a good place to start. It gives you that motivation that you need to you actually see yourself visibly getting better in search engine optimized writing and all of that. It's a niche skill to develop. I'm pretty sure that's also a skill that will emerge into a major career profession in the. It's already mainstream, but it's just going to be much more bigger in the coming years.
Are
Any
there
more
any more
questions?
questions? Thank you so much, Naveen Bhaiya. Thank you so much.
Uh,
Oh, we have a question. How you come up with new inspirations on what to write? Uh, hmm. Okay, so it's like, and who's your favorite author? Fine. Okay, so ideas. It's very interesting. Uh, Ideas, they just come to you in a very crude form, and they change over time. They change over time, and for example, I'm working on a project right now, my second book. Idea that inspired me to write my second book was different. It's not what I'm pursuing now. And ideas, they kind of impale your mind like a dart, and it's waiting to be fidgeted with, and you actually fidget, you experiment with it, and it turns into different projects, and you don't really know where it comes from. And I think that one way of getting inspiration and getting inspired is by reading more books. For my second book, I think it was I spent a lot of time in India during the lockdown reading the like the Indian scriptures, or Chanakya's Arthashastra. and I just read it for just to know what's really written in it, because it's truly a book of great knowledge. So I read these books, and that is when I discovered something very interesting, something like an ancient secret. And my second book is going to be based on this. Is going to revolve around those ancient secrets. So I think the more you read, the more ideas you get. I think that's where I draw my inspirations from. Even in MU, and I used to read a lot of papers and attend a lot of conferences, and that's when I was inspired to write alternate history. And for my second book, I read a lot of Indian scriptures, and that's where I drew my inspirations from. So I hope I answer the questions. That's where I get inspired from. Second question: who's your favorite author? Neil Gaiman. I love reading Neil Gaiman, and it's just beautiful the way he describes things, the way he describes emotions, the way he describes settings. You begin to weave yourself into the fabric of the novel, and it just takes you on a ride. My favorite novel is American Gods by Neil Gaiman, and it's a brilliant book. And I believe I was the protagonist until I finished reading the book. I felt like I was the protagonist, and yeah, Neil Gaiman is my favorite author. I even like Marcus and Mary Renaud. She writes brilliant alternate histories. I grew up reading Stephen King and Ashwin Sanghi. And as a child, I always liked R.L. Stevenson and Roald Dahl.
And by the way, guys, a lot of Neil Gaiman books are being converted into web series right now. The American Gods one is especially very well done. It's on Prime. It's an absolute feast to watch. The characters are built very well, and I think even Good Omens has been made into a series, yeah, on Netflix.
I'm not sure of Good Omens, but I haven't watched American Gods yet. I haven't
Oh,
watched the series yet. I know there's a show, but I haven't watched it yet. I need to watch it. But once you read a book, you really lose interest watching the adaptation. That
that's
happens.
also yeah.
Like even Green Mile, it's Tom Hanks, and I was so excited about it when it came on Netflix. But I read the book before, and I really didn't. I watched it because it was Tom Hanks, but otherwise, I don't think I'd have watched the movie. That's what happens when you read the book before watching the movie.
Right. All right. I think with this, we can wrap up today's session of Impact Tank. This was the podcast, guys. What we be moving on to the next in the further rounds of Impact Tank are pretty learning oriented things. This was just to give you guys different outlooks on life. From the first speaker, we learned about lifelong learning. From the second, we learned about how to stay consistent and how to maintain a balance between your study and your extracurricular activities and skill development activities. And from the third, we learned the joy of pursuing your passion and the thrills that it gets you. Everything that Shushyant has mentioned, right? Getting into the zone, finding that passion, all of this occurs also when you're out there to make an impact. When you're an engineer, a lot of people join college with the hopes of coming up with a product or changing the lives of their friends, family, or even the world. That is what we enter with. And somehow there's a trend that we've noticed. Every batch has only a few, very few handful people who we can point out and say, these guys did that. That is something we at IG want to change. We want to make our campus a hub for innovation, a hotspot for everything crazy and wonky, which is why you guys are here. And you will be trained in that particular domain. And we look forward to seeing all of you guys at Impact Tank. And please give us feedback about how the session went and if you've learned anything. And if you feel like there are some aspects we could have done better, uh, I hope you're on the Impact Tank group, the Early Birds group. Message me because feedback is what will make us make the program better for you guys. And we definitely want to do anything and everything that can ensure that this program is the best program that you guys would have attended in your college. Thanks a lot. I think we'll wrap up the session now. I would like to once again thank all the speakers for spending time and being here with us today. and great job. I think past 1.5 hour was really informative. Uh, Thank you. And even the participants, really interactive session. We've had audiences of 80, 90, but no audience has been this interactive. That's why I say small is better. Okay, that came out wrong, but like a smaller group is much better because the interaction is much more richer. So that's what we'll be aiming for. That's the whole concept of Impact Tank Early Birds. A very small, intimate group, which we'll focus on learning, and everything will be personally trained for you guys. You'll be given a lot. You'll be given a lot of attention and nurtured through the course of Impact Tank. Once again, send us feedbacks and thanks a lot. Have a nice day. Good night. Yep, patience is definitely the key. All right, bye.